darling. How you doing?
I don't see any.
Her comment on your picture of the cactus is really stupid. She's like, I'm not a fan of the heat. It's like,
I'm not a fan of the heat. I didn't ask.
oh yeah, she looks like awesome, like superhuman, like hotter than the
Check, check.
I don't need this, I don't think. Everyone can hear me in the back? All right. Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Did you have a good day today? Okay, now you know what to expect for tomorrow, correct?
Sometimes you never do.
I've made a few new friends this weekend.
They want me to use the microphone.
Okay, sorry, so start over. I apologize.
I've made a few new friends this weekend, people whom I would have never met if it had not been for the services of Celestis. Because of us, we have forced you to revisit a tragedy that caused your healing to be put on hold for a moment or two. Because of us, you have once again come close to some part of a physical bond and proximity of those loved ones. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. Because of us, a realization postponed once or twice already has finally come to fruition. What I would ask for if tragedy had struck me, I have no idea. Would it be fulfilled? Do I have a band of loyal friends who would have made sure that my wishes would be carried out? Celestis is happy that you have ventured as far away as Japan and China to send off those loved ones into space. A declaration that this person belongs to you and that you are more than willing to share that person with the universe. I have made a few new friends this weekend, and I insist on sharing them with you. Charles M. Chafer, Chief Executive Officer of Space Services Holdings, Inc., is an internationally recognized high-tech and commercial space entrepreneur. Called a pioneer on the cutting edge of commercial space by industry standard Space News, Chafer began his career in 1981 as part of the team under the direction of retired Mercury astronaut Donald K. Deke Slayton that launched the first privately funded rocket, Conestoga 1, into space. In 1994, Chafer co-founded Celestis Inc., and in 1995, successfully launched the first Celestis Memorial Spaceflight, garnering global attention as the founder's flight sent a symbolic portion of the cremated remains of Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry, 60s icon Timothy Leary, and 22 other participants into Earth orbit aboard a Pegasus rocket. In 1997, NASA asked Chafer and the Celestis team to honor legendary astronomer Dr. Eugene Shoemaker by making him the first person buried on the moon. Ladies and gentlemen, co-founder and CEO, Mr. Charles M. Chafer.
Thanks, Mark. Don't normally have a wonderful introduction at these events like you just gave me, so I'm a little bit blushing and taking the focus a little bit away from me. What I always say, this is our 15th memorial spaceflight. If you think about that, we've put more people in space than all the governments of the world combined. So we know that what we do is compelling. Now you're finding out that what we do, but it's really about what you've done, is compelling. This mission is for you. It's of you. It's by you. It's meant to be meaningful to you. That's why we do it. You'll see a lot of us Celestians running around here, and we're all space geeks, and we all like very much what we do. But the thing that we like the most of all is the feeling that we get after the launch when everyone comes up to us and said, I have no words. I cannot tell you. I thought it was going to be something special, but now that I've made Dad's dream or Mom's dream or my daughter's dream come through, thank you very much. So throughout the balance of this service, which is also for you, be thinking about the folks that are here with you. What I say is that we all suffer grief. And I'll parenthetically note that I believe on almost all of the flights that we've done, someone that's been very close to me, either professionally or personally or both, has flown. So in many ways, I know where from I speak, including on this mission. But what is important is that what we're doing here is not solely about grief. We cannot eliminate your grief. Can't happen. We won't do it. But we can provide an amazing celebration of someone's life. And that's what today's memorial service is and tomorrow's launch is. It's a celebration of life. Again, sort of a small vignette. I tell my friends that my job is to marry the two most conservative industries I know, aerospace and funeral. And boy, is that hard. That may be the reason why we're the only people in the world that have ever been able to successfully pull this off. But in the process of doing that, we learned so much about the power of technology. And what I tell my friends in both businesses is you will never attend a funeral where there's so much high-fiving and cheering and hugging and yelling and joy as at a Celestis Memorial Spaceflight. Again, this is for you, it's about you, it's for your loved one, it's fulfilling a dream. We're thrilled that you're here with us today. So, my job is to get to you fairly quickly. But before we do that, we have a few special guests that we want to introduce, and I'm going to let them come up and say just a few words as I speak to them. And I guess I'll start out with the representative from Truth or Consequences, Chamber of Commerce. Hans, are you in the audience? Yes, sir. Come on up and say hello to us.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Hans Townsend, and I'm with the Truth or Consequences Sierra County Chamber of Commerce. And we've done this before, but we mean it fresh every time. We really welcome you. We're grateful that you come, and we share your feelings. We hope that this will be very special and very memorable for you. On the other side of the plate, outside in that little room over there, you'll find a copy of this. If you're interested, there's 80-odd pages about this area, which most people really underestimate. We have so much to offer here, you won't believe it. But if you're interested, take one of these books. I know you got your discounts. We've also got some vouchers for the brewery downtown that if you're running around later, you can grab one of those. And we really hope you'll enjoy yourselves, notwithstanding what you're here for, which is very special. And we appreciate you coming. Thank you.
One of the things that we do in Celestis is that we allow folks from around the world to participate. We're very honored at this launch to have a number of participants from Japan. And I'd like to ask our partner, Yasushi Nakaguru, to come up and say just a few words of welcome on behalf of Ginga Stage and our Japanese participants. Yasushi? Accompanied by Ken Koda. Ken is a graduate of New Mexico State University and is now living in Japan.
日本から来ました銀河ステージの中黒と申します。
We came from Japan. He's worked for Ginga Stage in Japan.
今回日本から十数名の方が、皆様と一緒に、宇宙旅行を楽しむことになりました。
There are 12 Japanese group, 12 families join with you this memorial lunch.
セレスティッ社の非常に考え方に我々も感銘いたしまして、今日本でもどんどん、同じ、すみません、考え方に賛同していただきまして、どんどん利用しようという方が増えております。
Demand in Japan is really increasing, and we are happy to be here and looking forward to have a partnership longer.
国も人種も宗教も関係なく、このセレスティスのメモリアルスペース ランチを、みんなでシェアしていきたいと思います。
We are looking forward to share this great opportunity where there's no boundary between country, race, or any religion.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yoshishi-san. I've had the pleasure of visiting Japan 5 or 6 times, and what a wonderful culture. How attuned they are to the future and to spaceflight, and how wonderful we feel to be able to include people from Japan on our launches. We've had many participants over the years from Japan. It's a major component of our memorial missions. I think the next speaker I'm going to have to introduce myself to, because I've yet to meet her. Joelle, do you want to come up and say a few words? Please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joelle Anthony. I am a funeral director, blogger, and YouTuber from Atlanta, Georgia. And on behalf of the funeral service industry, I just want to tell you thank you. This is amazing. Like you said, I've never been to a memorial service where there have been so many smiles and excitement and just such positivity. I'm just excited and honored to be here. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your journey. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One of the great things about a Celestis Memorial Service is we always seek out and always locate someone locally or some trio locally or someone who is able to serenade us with a bit of music at interludes during the memorial service. We love it. It's great. And it's time for some more Anna Maria. Thank you. Much appreciated. We find that a little bit of classical music helps us all think a little bit about the past, the present, and the future. So we greatly appreciate it. Next, I've on your list is a poem or a recitation that I stumbled across several years ago, but this is the first time. And when I read it, I said, we have to use this at our Celestis Memorial services. We aren't a sectarian. We're not a specific religion or a specific spirituality in our approach to memorial spaceflight. We're sort of all embracing, or somebody once said, we worship a Xerox machine. We accept it all. But one thing that we do celebrate without fail is the amazing science and physics that it takes to accomplish this great spiritual mission. The mixture I find compelling, the fact that as we're all contemplating the great beyond, whatever that is, we're actually reaching the great beyond. And that's because of the amazing math, science, and physics that it takes to get there. So I've asked Mark to read this recitation, and it's called, "You Want a Physicist to Speak at Your Funeral."
You Want a Physicist to Speak at Your Funeral by Aaron Freeman. You want a physicist to speak at your funeral. You want the physicist to talk to your grieving family without the conservation of energy, so they will understand that your energy has not died. You want the physicist to remind your sobbing mother about the last law of thermodynamics, that no energy gets created in the universe and none is destroyed. You want your mother to know that all your energy, every vibration, every BTU of heat, every wave of every particle that has her beloved child remains with her in this world. You want the physicist to tell your weeping father that amid energies of the cosmos, you gave as good as you got. And at one point, you'd hope that the physicist would step down from that pulpit and walk to your broken-hearted spouse there in the pew and tell him that all the photons that ever bounced off your face, all the particles whose paths were interrupted by your smile, by the touch of your hair, hundreds of trillions of particles have raced off like children, their ways forever changed by you. And as your widow rocks in the arms of a loving family, may the physicist let her know that all the photons that bounced from you were gathered in the particle detectors that are her eyes, that those photons created within her constellations of electromagneticity, oh wow, that too, charged neurons whose energy will go on forever. And the physicist will remind the congregation of how much of all our energy is given off as heat. There may be a few fanning themselves with their programs as he says this, and he will tell them that the warmth that flowed through you in life is still here, still part of all that we are, even as we who mourn continue the heat of our own lives. And you'll want the physicist to explain to those who love you that they need not have faith. Indeed, they should not have faith. Let them know that they can measure, that scientists have measured precisely the conservation of energy and found in it accurate, verifiable, and consistent across space and time. You can hope your family will examine the evidence and satisfy themselves that the science is sound and that they'll be comforted to know your energy's still around. According to the law of the conservation of energy, not a bit of you is gone. You're just less orderly. Amen.
Thank you, Mark. Now it's time for what this memorial service is all about. We call it Family Stories, and we've asked each of you if you want to share a family story with us, and we have several folks that have said yes, indeed. And having done this now 15 times with 1,000 folks, I know that every time we do one of these, there are one or two folks that say, I know I told you no, but I really want to get up and talk. You're welcome to join us. If you feel moved today and you're not on my list, don't worry about it. We have plenty of time for you. Again, this mission is for you. But we'll start out with the folks that I know want to speak. May I ask Christina Van Meter to join us at the podium and share with us the story of Forrest Daniel Dan Van Meter.
Thank you. My husband, Dan, passed away just this July from stage 4 colorectal cancer. A year ago tonight, my daughter, 9-year-old Julia, was going to her very first daddy-daughter dance with her daddy. And it was his last daddy-daughter dance. We had no clue a year ago that he wouldn't be here with us tonight. It was fast and aggressive, and it hit us out of the blue, and our lives were rewritten. We take a lot of things for granted in this life, and so when you get hit with a tragedy or sickness or an illness like that, it really puts things into perspective. My husband, Dan, was a police officer. He lived his life with honor and service toward others for 16 years. He was a loving dad to Benjamin, who's just turned 12, Julia, 9, a loving son, and a loving brother, a friend to many. He didn't know anything about this. I found this after he passed, as I was searching for what I could do to honor him. And I was so glad I did, and I was so glad that we were one of the last ones, I think maybe the 51st, to join the crew. And it was very special, and I can't thank you guys enough. This is perfect for Dan. He was a character, and when he wasn't working, his happy place was with his family. And his other happy place was anything to do with the stars, astronomy, Star Wars. I can't even begin to take his place with my children with the amount of infinite knowledge that he knew about Marvel Universe and Star Wars and Star Trek and everything there was to do about stars. He enjoyed nature, and he loved fishing in his youth. He later spent time at the beaches in Southwest Florida and Maryland, where we're from, on the coast of Maryland. He was loved and respected by many, and he made a lasting impact for his loyalty, his leadership, and kindness, and he will be missed. Here he is. This was our celebration of life. And we also made a memorial card for him, and you could see that it kind of honors him and his love of the stars and Star Wars and his story. Yeah. And the last thing was when he proposed to me, he sang me the song From Here to Eternity. And we have the inscriptions on our wedding bands, and that was a thing that it was close to us, and so I truly believe that it's from here to eternity. And this is a beautiful way to send off and to move on, and that's what this weekend has been for me. Thank you.
I mentioned before that on virtually every launch that we do, unfortunately, there's been someone that I've known professionally or personally. Same is true on this mission. In this instance, though, I'm even more moved, more touched, because the person that is on this mission who's special to me was quite possibly the best friend I have in the world. I have many good friends, but someone that I've known since college and spent many wonderful days with as he moved around the country, and even knew his daughter when she was in the womb, and we're honored to have his daughter with us today. And so if I can ask Miss Sarah Jane Green to come up and speak about her father, Alfred Tuna Snyder.
Thank you, Charlie. My father, Alfred Charles Tuna Snyder III, was born in Pasadena, California on October 28th, 1950. And he passed away on December 11th, 2015. And it was sudden. It was unexpected. He was not ready. We were not ready. He impacted the lives of literally thousands and thousands of people across the world through, I want to say, three main passions that he had in life. The first one was his professional path, where he met Charlie in college. Charlie was debating on the debate team at Georgetown, and my father was on the debate team at Brown University. And my father became a professional debate coach, and he was coaching collegiate debate for most of his life. But in the late 80s, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, he began spreading debate in Eastern Europe to teach people in emerging democracies how to, what he would call, replace weapons with words, to find reason as a way of solving conflicts and building better democracies. And from that start in Eastern Europe, he traveled throughout Asia, the Middle East, Africa, teaching people in emerging democracies how to debate and employ what he called logic and love. Places like Iraq, Bangladesh, Nepal, many countries, over 40 countries that he traveled to engage youth in argument. His second passion in life was science fiction. According to Wired magazine, my father was the biggest Doctor Who fan in the Whoniverse. My name is Sarah Jane. Sarah Jane Smith was one of Dr. Number 4's companions, one of the longest running companions in Doctor Who. In fact, when they rebooted Doctor Who after some time off, they actually created a spin-off series, The Sarah Jane Adventures, which he loved. So he was a big science fiction fan. In high school, he started writing a fan fiction, fanzine, with a bunch of his friends, and we have all of those in special collections at the university library. It was a gift that he gave to us that we still have those writings of his. His third passion in life was music. It's also a love that he and Charlie shared deeply. My father was, his love for reggae music emerged when he saw the film The Harder They Come in the 1970s. And he became a reggae music evangelist, for sure. And when he moved to Vermont to become a professor at the University of Vermont, he became the faculty advisor for the radio station there at the University of Vermont, where he had a weekly radio show, Wednesdays at noon, called The Reggae Lunch. He also founded the Vermont Reggae Festival, which was the largest free reggae concert in the world. And he really believed it needed to be free so that everybody could come experience this. Even if you are in the whitest state of the union, we should all enjoy reggae music. I want to thank Charlie for providing this opportunity to fulfill this dream. My father was not ready to die. He did not have plans to die. He did not have a will. But the only thing we really knew for sure that he wanted was the memorial space flight. And so for the last 3 years, we don't know if we've been responding to his death in a way that he would approve of. But tomorrow morning, we'll know that we will have fulfilled his dream. And so thank you so much. And I don't want to take too much time, so I'll end it there.
Thank you, Sarah. He was very special. Everyone on this flight has their own story. Everyone on this flight was very special. That's the thing that I've learned, again, through 14 coming on 15 missions. It's just amazing the variety of humanity and the appeal of our service, but more fundamentally, the appeal of a lasting statement of a memorial spaceflight. Next, we're going to have another gentleman I've known for a long, long time. He and I, when we were in college together, he at University of Maryland, the evil big state school, and me at Georgetown, the evil private school. We came together to support space colonization, the vision of Dr. Gerard K. O'Neill, who actually gave me my first job in the space industry, and the notion that we hear a lot now from some of the billionaires who are out conquering space, that humanity really needs to become a multi-planet species. And Gary has championed that for as long as I've known him, and his championing of that has led him today here to celebrate the life of another champion of space. I'll let him tell you about his participant, but I'll say that this gentleman who's on board tomorrow has the biggest contingent here today of friends and family, and we're really happy that you're here. Gary Barnard.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you all for having the opportunity to share this moment with you. It's argued that our friend Hugh Daniel and I are charter members of the First Church of Space Scientists. I have my own peculiar Vespers. The fact that a robotic space systems engineer couldn't tie a bow tie from scratch, well, that's a whole nother story. But here today, perhaps it's fitting, given the venue of Truth or Consequences, to hold forth on the subject of truth and its consequences. We are gathered here today for what is a test flight for Hugh Daniel, fomented and supported by those that think spacing Hugh is a fitting memorial, a flight which is a harbinger of his future trip to deep space. Hugh was my friend. Somewhere in the span of the 80s, we found ourselves crossing paths at World Science Fiction conventions between volunteering, enjoying the conviviality of our eclectic compatriots to all hours of the night, putting on and being part of the programming, and discussing the intersections between science fiction, space, and reality. We became fast friends. In time, he became part of our family, endeared to my wife, children, and our pussycats. Hugh was an irascible but gentle soul. His politics were libertarian, bordering on the doctrinaire, yet he had well-founded opinions on virtually everything. Even if you profoundly disagreed with him, his thoughts, far more often than not, gave cause for reflection. He was an open source software champion, lending his efforts to the Internet Engineering Task Force, the Free Swan Public Key Integration, or encryption development, in the work of the Electronic Frontier Foundation, Project Xanadu, Cyberpunks, Starstruck, amongst many. He was ever inclined to be quite pissy, after a fact, holding forth on the foolishness of the Linux children, and even more misguided, mischievous machinations of the boys and girls in Redmond, Washington, not to mention how hopelessly aerospace I was inclined to be in a pejorative sense, without his guidance, of course. He cut his programming teeth in the VMX and Unix wars and came to be a seasoned veteran of all flavors of Linux, though his heart belonged to the promise of Debian. He was difficult in any number of ways, but when you had to face a tough networking, programming, and/or security challenge, there was no better hacker to have on your team and at your side. Hugh is my erstwhile business partner in XISP.net, lead software architect for multiple generations of our custom IP server security gateway products, fellow entrepreneur, rocket scientist, part of our household for months at a time for many years, friendly ogre and jungle Jim for my wife and I's kids, expert, mischievous, present wrapping consultant, chief photographer, and the only person I've ever known to roll Linux kernels for fun. He publicly challenged the world in multiple fora to take down our infrastructure and lent his skills to seeing that they could not. The XISP.net team built and fielded infrastructure more than a decade ahead of the markets that in no small measure due to his work. Yet he had unresolved issues with what were to him the travails of terrestrial life. Time cards which he could not abide. Paperwork which was just administrivia. Going to the doctor or dentist required an escort. Money a marginally necessary inconvenience. Bank accounts, egads. Cell phone contracts, you have got to be kidding. Authority in all forms was to be questioned. He was once called out as my bodyguard, adorned in what was referred to as his Scottish war kilt. It was argued that the two of us were a caricature of an old married couple. Suffice it to say that a great many waterfowl metaphorically lost their innocence as we verbally crossed swords. When I found his doppelganger, a male greeting card model adorned in pink hot pants and a mischievous grin, offering this as evidence that he may have been secretly leading a double life. After several weeks, he even agreed to speak to me again. He even stoically suffered through the mysterious quote he received for a state-of-the-art, 6-foot-tall, red-headed female animatronic in good humor. Hugh found joy in programming, cryptography, computer hardware, dancing, teaching, science fiction, eating almost anything, kilts, space, children, photography, music, astronomy, talking about just about anything. He was a one-man tough room, ever willing to question everything, even his own fervently held beliefs from time to time. Hugh reveled in protesting every element of security theater he encountered. He was ever ready to hold forth on any aspect of life, the universe, and everything, towel in hand. He lived life engaged in the moment. When pressed for what he wanted most, he had his list. 1, a starship. 2, the company of a very smart, tall, beautiful, red-haired woman. 3, more milk and cookies. Truth be told, Hugh is a dear friend. Ad Astra. Thank you all for being here.
I think you took my list. Thank you, Gary. Another delightful gentleman is next, who I've had the privilege of spending a few hours with as he's arrived today. Jack Lambert, can I get you to come up and tell us of your wife, Patricia?
My journey started 50 years ago, almost to the day, when I met my wife. We had 50 good years together. Her journey to here started in 2001 when she sent off for the information, and I found the original letter that Celestis had sent her, and she said she wanted to go, and I said, fine, you're going. I found the true definition of love during the darkest moments when she was in the hospital. When she couldn't remember her children's name, when she couldn't remember her grandchildren's name, where she lived, almost anything at all after a stroke. When the doctors would ask her a question and try to get her to answer it, and she couldn't, she would turn over and smile at me and say, I love you. And to me, that's the best part of life, love. And that's what I'm doing here. I love her. I miss her, but she's still my girl.
Next, we have the second place clan of terms of people showing up. Michael Kennedy, if you'd please come up and tell us about your father, Paul.
Good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody here at Celeste. It's just really been a wonderful experience and exceeded my expectations. So I really appreciate what you guys have done here. I'm here for my dad, Paul. I'm here with my mom, Norma, his sister, Sue, my brother, Matt, back there, and my dad's grandkids, Lucy and Benno. He's got another grandkid, Rollo, along with my brother's wife back in Minnesota. We'd all like to thank you very much. I'm going to read a little bit about him and then tell you a quick story. Paul was born May 1st, 1952 in Bellingham, Washington. He was one of 5 children of Roy and Eleanor Kennedy. He served in the Army for 3 years, was stationed in Korea, and he was a proud veteran. He met his wife, Norma, while she was studying at Western Washington University in Bellingham, Washington. They were married for 34 years and 1 day. Paul was Alaska Airlines Alaska Airlines mechanic for 29, almost 30 years. He loved space, he loved aircraft, he loved all that. He big Star Trek fan growing up. I mean, that's all we watched. It's all the time. We talked, quoting the show back and forth was like a language in our family. He spent his final years living in the foothills of Mount St. Helens, and Dan's story has particularly touched me because we lost my dad to colorectal cancer as well. And he went quick. He retired on May 1st in 2014, and they went on a vacation for a week, and he came home and got diagnosed on May 8th, and he passed away on October 1st, the day after their 34th wedding anniversary. He made it through the night. He made it till 6 a.m. because he knew he couldn't die that day. Anyway, for a quick story about my pops. He loved space so much, even when he was a kid, as an adult. Even when we were growing up, he'd wake up in the middle of the night, put it on C-SPAN, and watch the Space Shuttle launch. I mean, it'd be 3 in the morning, and he'd get up and watch it. And that was kind of what he did as a kid, too. Back in, I think it was 62 when the Mercury missions were going on. He was about 10 years old. And those missions lasted for about 4 hours to 9 hours, depending on the mission. And he'd pull up his chair in front of the TV, and he'd get a drink, and he'd get a snack, and he'd sit it down, and he said, I'm in for the duration of the flight. And he would watch the whole thing from beginning to end. Well, Pops, this is your mission. This is your flight. Strap in. You're in for the duration. Thank you.
Wonderful story. Tammy Blair, are you here, and will you come up and speak for your mother, Savannah?
First off, thank you, Celestis, for this amazing opportunity. We just lost Savannah 6 months ago. It was unexpected. It was unfair. But I want to tell you about what a wonderful daughter she was. She was a surprise. She was not an accident. She was a surprise. But a gift, because we already had a daughter and a son. It was the perfect family, right? But there was just this little part of me that said, I'm not finished. There's another one. And so we had not made that decision, but God did. And Savannah came. And she was a very special gift. She was a gifted musician. And when she was 10, she sat down at the piano and she played Coldplay without lessons. And we're like, oh my God, get this girl some lessons. And she loved space. Her phone, I don't know if you know that you can name your phone. Yeah. Hers was named Captain's Log. She took it very seriously. Her best year in high school was the year she took physics and astronomy at the same time. And she found something that she loved. And she loved telling you obscure little facts about things out there that you had no idea existed anyway. But because of that, we learned a few things. You may know, I bet some of you do, Leonard Nimoy's last tweet, "A life is like a garden. Perfect moments can be had, yet not preserved, except in memory." And Savannah's garden was beautiful. So I'm going to keep this short, and I'm going to address my last words to Savannah. I'm okay, sweetie. I know you're here because I know physics enough to know that you really are still with us. So buckle up, Buttercup, because you're about to be the fastest Blair on Earth. Namaste.
Julie, is it View Greens? Okay. And you are? Madison. Welcome.
Thank you. So we're here today, or this weekend, to honor my grandma, Deanna. Although she didn't have a specific connection to space, I don't recall her quoting Star Wars or Star Trek. She was an avid adventurer, and from as long as I can remember, even before I came into the picture, there were stories of her going out of her way to find the next thrill, whether it was flying to Hong Kong and climbing the Great Wall of China, calling her husband Odin to say, "Hey, Deanie, guess where I'm calling you from?" Or rafting the Grand Canyon. Anything she could do to explore the world was her favorite thing, and if she could include her family in that, it was all the better for her. She was born long before anyone had ever been to the moon, but I can just imagine her excitement when they finally made it there, because that was one step closer to her achieving another adventure. She was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and she suffered from that for well over 20 years. She eventually succumbed to that disease and complications of it. But all throughout the process, she never let that disease rob her of her joy and her love that she had for life. She was relentless in, going on adventures. So one of the last adventures that she was able to achieve was with her daughter Julie, and they went to Bouchard Gardens in Victoria Island. And we can thank her family creed of it's now or never for being able to achieve that, because unbeknownst to us, she would pass away just 3 weeks later. And at the end of that trip, they asked her, "Hey, Deanna, what's your next adventure?" And she thought for a minute, and then she just said, "Well, I guess I've got to go to space." So that's why we're here today. We're sending her on her final adventure. She's going to space, and we know that she's here with us and that she is so excited to achieve her final goal. So thanks, Celestis.
Thank you, Madison. That was wonderful. And it is the case that several folks that we fly are adventurers without a specific connection to space, but they just want to do it all. And we're happy to be able to support you and your family